Hi, I'm Jim Selleck, piano technician. In this segment, we'll talk about why your piano goes out of tune. Now, I could write a whole book on this topic, but we're trying to keep these informational videos under 5 minutes, so we're going to have to skim a bit to make things fit. First, the executive summary of how an acoustic piano is built and how it works. Every piano, and this applies to grand pianos as well as verticals, is a big massive harp made out of cast iron. The harp or plate is nearly always cast iron, although there are rare exceptions when cast aluminum or steel alloys are used. The plate is bolted into a heavy wooden support frame to keep it stable and fitted to a curved soundboard over which at least 220 steel strings of various lengths and thicknesses are stretched at an overall total tension between 35 and 45,000 pounds. The lowest bass strings down on the left, they're the longest and the thickest, and they're wound with copper to increase their mass. On the low bass end, each note has a single large string. As you travel up the scale, you encounter progressively thinner strings in double unisons, and finally, more than half of the middle and upper range are triples, where for each note 3 strings must be tuned in unison. Hopefully that helps explain why the piano has more than 220 strings but only 88 keys. A great many individual notes are grouped in threes, 3 strings tuned together. When those unisons start falling out of tune with each other, that's when some notes start sounding like an old-time honky-tonk saloon piano, and the whole instrument starts to sound entirely less musical. So, why do pianos go out of tune? Given what I just said about all of those steel wires stretched to pretty high tension, you might be thinking that the steel continues to stretch, lowering the tension and changing the musical pitch. And you are not wrong if you're thinking that, especially when the piano is brand new. In the first 5 years or so, they should be tuned regularly and frequently. Any new piano should be tuned 4 times in the first year, although they rarely are. After that, the strings tend to stabilize a bit, and changing humidity in the air becomes the primary culprit. Depending on the climate where you live and heating and cooling systems in the building where the piano lives, the soundboard can swell or shrink significantly through the year, changing the tension of the strings, and that puts the piano out of tune, guaranteed. In addition to the strings, the hundreds of wood and felt parts, pads, and bushings inside your piano are especially sensitive to humidity changes. Through cycles of wetter and drier weather, felt bushings can swell up, causing sticky keys. Felt hammers and dampers can harden, causing noisy operation and even changing the entire voice of the piano. Shrinking wood parts can cause screws to loosen, causing rattles, and when soundboards shrink, they can crack, causing critical components to potentially come unglued, which can result in loss of tone or the piano making really nasty buzzing noises when you try to play it. Almost anything that goes wrong with your piano can be fixed, but the cost of larger scale repairs can exceed the value of the instrument. For example, if the rest plank or pin block fails, causing the tuning pins to loosen to a point where the strings can no longer hold tension, it can be replaced, but that requires complete disassembly and rebuilding of the piano, and unless it's a high-end collector's item, the cost can easily exceed that of a brand new piano. If you have a way to keep the music room steady at between 42 and 45% humidity year-round, the piano will stay in tune much longer, and it will last a lot longer too. Unfortunately, in most homes, that is not easy, often impossible. Pianos that live in especially challenging environments like churches and schools, or even homes where even climate control is impossible, your technician can install a special humidity control system inside the piano to keep it happy and more stable. Summarizing, steel strings tend to loosen over time. On older instruments, tuning pins may loosen due to excessive dryness, causing the pin block to shrink. Also, dryness can cause the soundboard or other wooden components to shrink, crack, or even structurally fail. Those are some reasons why, if you are considering a used piano from a private owner, you should consider having a technician evaluate its condition in advance. I am often asked if the amount the piano is played makes a difference, and the surprising answer is not so much. Unless you have the Incredible Hulk beating on the instrument, it really doesn't matter that much. Pianos are made to be played. It's good for them and keeps the parts moving freely. But even if your piano is not being played at all, it's still going to gradually go out of tune. So the moral of the story is this: protect your piano investment by not letting the air get too dry or too wet in the music room. The piano will love you for it, and it will tend to sound better longer between tunings.